Talking Journeys of Belonging to Blackness, Season 5. Welcome back, good people. You've been passport ready and traveling with us on the podcast journey through Southern Africa. It's been a fantastic journey during the Season 5, and we can't wait to let you in on what's in store for Season 6, which kicks off in September of 2024. So be sure to stay tuned, subscribe to the website, which is indialoricwilmot.com, for show updates and announcements because big things are coming very soon. This month, we are making our stop in the beautiful country of Zimbabwe to Victoria Falls. I've spent my time exploring Victoria Falls Township and taking a boat cruise to float alongside a bloat of hippos while on the Zambezi River, and then, of course, waving to folks in Zambia during the sunset. I also spent a day visiting the Victoria Falls National Park Rainforest, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The falls itself is one of the world's largest waterfalls, and it is definitely a sight to see in person. But besides the falls, I think that most people may be unaware that Zimbabwe was considered a significant participant in the gold trade route through East Africa and along the Indian Ocean prior to the 1500s. And similar to South Africa and its apartheid system, Zimbabwe's Land Apportionment Act and other segregationist policies grossly impacted Black life and personhood until the Civil War led to Black independence in 1980. And the policy repeal and attempts for land reallocation occurred in the mid to late 1990s. So therefore, the significant increase of Black hotelier ownership since 2018 indicates the overdue progress the country needs in order to flourish economically. Marking this significance is the growth of Black women revolutionizing hospitality with the establishment of luxury hotels and safari lodges. Now, I had the wonderful fortune of staying at one such place called MBano Manor Hotel, Victoria Falls by Mantis, a boutique luxury hotel founded, built, and managed since 2020 by Doc Mati. Doc Mati has brought her 2 decades plus experience in hospitality industry to Victoria Falls to become the first Black woman to own a 5-star luxury hotel, which also became the first internationally branded hotel in Victoria Falls in over a decade under the Mantis Collection in 2023. So sit back and listen to Doc Mati share her journey to realize the dream of bringing luxury and conservation to her beloved Zimbabwe as a Black woman entrepreneur and hotelier. Check it out.
Give Black Alliance is proud to support the podcast Talking Journeys of Belonging to Blackness, hosted by India Lorick Wilmot. The podcast is an exploration of all aspects of our Black communities, including gifts of time, talent, and treasure, while shedding a positive light on the African-descendant experience globally. The Give Black Alliance informs, reforms, and transforms philanthropy to acknowledge and partner with our communities in order to bring about equitable change for all. To learn more about Give Black Alliance, visit us at giveblackalliance.org.
Right about now.
Act 1. Call to Adventure.
This is a breakdown.
My name is Mati Nyazema, and I'm the director-owner of MBano Manor Hotel, Victoria Falls in Zimbabwe.
So tell us, Nyasema, about yourself and your origin story. How did you become founder of MBano Manor?
I would say it started from my childhood, really. I guess I was lucky to have my parents in terms of my father was a headmaster, and he actually came to Victoria Falls with us when we were quite young. He actually brought his school. I wasn't even a student at his school, so we came down. It was quite a long time ago, but it left a lasting impact on me in terms of growing up, because we grew up in Harare, which is the capital, and it's quite far from here. And so normally people from Harare didn't get to Victoria Falls. So we'd study about it because obviously, world-known resort, etc. But I always grew up with this thing about, I'm privileged. I've been to Victoria Falls. So it was quite interesting that in my later careers, I actually ended up in tourism. My first degree was in political science. Then I did a postgrad in journalism. Then literally within 3-4 years of working, I actually ended up in tourism, and I've never left. So my whole career was tourism, because I started off with destination marketing, working for the destination marketing agency in Harare for the country. Then moved, I'll very briefly give you my history. Then I went to do my master's in international hotel management at the University of Surrey in the UK. Came back, then worked for a hotel group, then joined British Airways Global at the time when they were still flying into Zimbabwe. My career took off in the 90s. I was sales manager Zimbabwe, but within a 2-year period, I ended up being area marketing manager Sub-Saharan Africa, relocated to Nairobi, and then eventually to South Africa. So my career, actually, the way it ended up going was I ended up with very much a global experience, especially with British Airways. I've traveled to over 60 countries in my lifetime. So I've seen the best of the best. I've seen resorts in the middle of nowhere. So it was interesting that roll forward 20 years later, because the last 20 years of my career was in South Africa, working for a hotel group there. I think the seeds of what is MBano Manor Hotel today came from all of that. First of all, my love for Victoria Falls, because it was always my passion, but also then seeing what is out there and actually saying, I could do this in my own country. So when we were talking way too next with my husband, because we've been out of the country almost 20 years, and I just said, you know what, I've always wanted to own something in Victoria Falls. I've just got an affinity for Victoria Falls. And he just turned to me and said, so why don't you do it now?
Wow.
It was literally, and I thought, actually, yes, I'm ready. So I think, the universe sort of came together. I'd done almost like a 30 career in corporate, but now I was ready to do my own thing. And I also had the courage to do it, because I remember a cousin of mine years back saying to me, you should go into your own business. And I said, no ways. At the time, I think I was just scared, how do you do it, etc. But, when it's the right time, you've had a career, you have the knowledge. And I thought, I want to do this. And 6 years later, here we are.
What's really interesting is that you are definitely a people person. Political science is about the people and the politics, right?
Yes, yeah.
Then you fast forward to journalism, which is about focusing on the people and their stories.
Yes.
For yourself professionally in the field of tourism, it's still about people, but you were telling a story about marketing.
Yes.
Right? And people's experiences through their travel.
Yes.
So I think it's all it's all related to you connecting to people.
Yeah. In fact, it's funny because in the family, they tease me to say I'm the storyteller. So, each time we sort of meet together as a family, I'm the only one who knows when did Grandma X pass away? Where did our father go to school in 19XYZ?
Right.
I think I've always been fascinated by knowledge, because even as a young child, I was very keen on English and reading. And in fact, when I always look back, I read once an article about hidden competitive advantages. And I realized, because my father was a school headmaster, I had access to a library. And I read, and I used to love reading. And I literally read every single book in that library.
Wow.
By the time I went to high school, which was a boarding school, that first year I read every book for our Form 1 class, and I read every book for the Form 2 class. And then I befriended the guys in the higher classes so they could get books for me from there. So I've always been a person very much about knowledge, just global knowledge. And even after my first degree, going into journalism, it was almost the right thing to do, because even up to now, I actually still call myself a journalist, because at heart, every day I listen to the news. I'm one of those, I know exactly what's happening all over the world. I literally start my day like, okay, what's CNN saying? What's Sky News saying? And what is this one saying? And also I like to know the different opinions as well.
Right.
what are the different views, and then, okay, what is my view if I have a view at all? So I have always been fascinated by knowledge and also by people and social circumstances. So I do find that it fascinates me just, the interaction of people. So it also then is linked to my studies as well. So how sort of after my first degree, my postgrad, and then I did my master's in tourism, which was more about my career. But then my PhD was really more about the fascination that I have with why do relationships work the way they do, the whole issue of racial discrimination.
Yes.
Like I said, I was totally fascinated. I didn't even understand how it happened in South America, in the Caribbean, etc. Then you also go to Malaysia, whatever, even in Africa itself, and the different types. And for me, it was always about human nature, what causes prejudice. Even coming to Victoria Falls, because it was almost a new city now living here, and I'm thinking, okay, right, these are the dynamics of a place. And so yes, I've always been a storyteller of sorts.
Yes. And it's all connected because being a storyteller or an observer of people, it's not only a personal passion or interest of yours, but it's quite relevant to the work that you're doing in tourism. You need to understand the political and the social and the cultural dynamics because it impacts business. It impacts the ways in which people choose to move and traverse through space. If people feel unsafe or they feel that there's political unrest or that they feel that they may be discriminated against or unseen or treated well, right? We need to have the positives. Then it determines how they choose to enter into certain spaces.
Yes, definitely. And I mean, I've found even just being here at any time, we've got Americans, we've got Russians, we've got people from all over the world. And I've found my background has really helped me to connect with the clients as well. Because as you say, people are people, they want to know that you know your country. Recently we had a couple from India, an elderly couple, and they were saying, we're from Calcutta. And I was like, okay, I've been to Hyderabad and I've been to Delhi. It became a talking point. I don't know their culture enough, but at least I've taken the time to actually go to their country and I know a little bit about them. And, it made them also more settled to say, okay, she knows where we're coming from and, et cetera, et cetera. So yes, it is actually very relevant for our current job because hospitality is about entertaining people.
Absolutely.
But also respecting their space, but also understanding where they're coming from. And it's something that even we teach our staff here to actually say, what makes us different? What makes us different is we're human beings. Let's show them the best of who we are as an African culture. But yes, there's also global standards to meet. People are coming from different countries. So, I always say to my people, please just do a little bit of research. Who are these people? Because it's always nice.
Right.
They're on holiday, they're here to celebrate something, and we want them to have the best time.
So what was it like for you in your career as a young woman coming up, becoming established as a Black woman, leaving Zimbabwe where it's having its own liberation movement, going to South Africa in the midst of apartheid and post-apartheid? What was that like? I can imagine the dynamics as a Black woman, an African woman. Are you Shona?
Yes, I'm Shona.
So then you have that sort of dynamic as well.
Yes. So obviously my younger career was under our Zim apartheid. Because remember, we only gained independence in 1980. And by then, I literally was second year university. So I actually almost had like 2 lives before apartheid and the new Zimbabwe. So it was very interesting in terms of when I finished my university, we were the lucky generation in terms of we started university before independence and finished university after independence. That's when also there was a big white exodus out of the country. So there were lots of jobs available. There were lots of opportunities available. So also part of my career, that's why hopefully I've been as successful as I think I have. But it also brought a whole lot of change in terms of most of what I find in my career was I was the first of a lot of things. Because there hadn't been any history of a Black person doing that or a Black woman doing that. So even my very first job ever, because I was at university but I decided to take a holiday job, it was in what was called the Ministry of European, Asian and Colored Education. Wow. I know when I tell the youngsters, they're like, was there ever such a thing? So there were 2 departments, the Ministry of African Education and Department of European, Asian and Colored. But I was there at the time now where they were saying we need to merge into one. So we literally had a process where we were sitting there saying, let's do everything alphabetically and regardless of the race and the color of the person. So I actually came across my father's file right through there. I almost experienced integration of an old apartheid system. Now you're trying to say this is the new way and this is where we're going. But I was the first black employee in the Ministry of European, Asian and Colored Education. And this was literally my university level. Then post-university, when I started working, even as a journalist, because you can imagine information is very important for a new independent country, I was a television news editor. And the crew that I was working with, I was the only one who was not an ex-combatant. We hadn't been to the war. So I'd come to journalism through education. And these guys, they'd actually gone to the war first. And then as part of being outside the country because of the war, they were sent overseas, most of them to Yugoslavia, actually, for training. My friends, in fact, one of them came here like we hadn't met in like 30 years or something. It was so funny catching up with them. The thing was, it was an education for me because I had never been to the war. So I was very naive, sort of like an urban child, born and bred. But now you're talking to these guys who actually opted to go to the war and left the country and left their families, not knowing if they'll ever come back.
Right.
And then they come back. But the one joke I'll tell you is when we were now working in this new independent television news studio, we were the ones who'd write the stories behind the scenes and edit, etc. Because I was so non-political in the days of typewriters, so I'd be typing a story and I would stop and say, Nicaragua, are we pro or anti? And then I would write another story and then I'll be like, El Salvador, are we pro? And because Zimbabwe was quite clear about, we support this, we don't support this. So, I'm going around the whole world, Korea, are we pro? Which Korea are we with? And I looked back and I was like, that was so crazy. That was my first job. And then from there, like I said, I joined tourism, which has, I guess, a completely different world, more about now destination marketing, enjoying the country. But to talk about, again, my experiences, you're part of the first team that is now saying we, the Black people, are representing ourselves and our country. How do you now start actually promoting your own country? Since Zimbabwe is one of those countries where there's sunshine every day, throughout the year. So I did not understand the fascination with sunsets because I'd seen sunsets and the sun starts yellow, white, and then goes orange.
Right.
So my grandmother knows that and my aunt knows that, but I've never questioned the beauty of that. And I remember the first time I went to Lake Kariba and we're sitting there and everyone is going, wow, look at this sunset. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, but I've seen this all my life.
Right.
But with time, you appreciate now the colors of life because you almost take the forest for granted. You've lived with it all your life. I didn't live in the forest in terms of the animals or whatever. So I think for me, there was that growing of that experience. But now actually having the responsibility to market it to other people who are actually saying, tell me why I should come to your country. Tell me what's so special about your country.
Right.
But beyond that, then after I'd done my master's, and even with that, I always say I'm one of those people, in my education, I was always like in the top 5. I was okay, but I was never number 1. I was always number 2 or 3. So I was always right there in the top 5. And what I found was somehow it made me always want to succeed. So even when I applied for a scholarship to study my master's, it was a British Council scholarship, and I didn't get it the first round. They actually said to me, but you're one of our reserve candidates. If someone drops out, you will go. And I spent 9 months asking them, every month actually, is it okay? Is it okay? So what I've found is I also developed that character to say, you're getting opportunities, but you have to fight for them. It just doesn't mean it comes natural. And don't always accept no for an answer.
Right.
And I think I'm sort of a bit known for that now because it's so much becoming. Because I just found that's how I achieved things in life. A number of my friends say to me, but how did you do this? And I always say, for me, the answer no is usually not good enough. I think I get that from my mother. It's like, but why? Why are you saying no? Tell me why you're saying no. And isn't there another way around this? Isn't there another solution? And sometimes I think, especially, and it might be a generalization, but in my experience as an African people, because of the apartheid that we went through, because of some of the hardships that we went through. We were living in a township and we were not allowed to live in a nice house in the suburbs until independence. So there was almost whoever the we is, allow you to do this and you are not allowed to do that. So I grew up in that sort of environment. So you learn to say you must challenge it. Because I also saw the transition to, now you're free to do whatever you want to do. And even with this experience I've done here at the hotel, I've said to people sometimes, who's stopping you? A lot of people say to me, how did you do this? How did you? I said, who stopped you? Who's stopping you from doing what you want? Because we were brought up in that mentality of you need to get permission from someone to find yourself, to take adventure. I do notice, obviously, the younger generation are a lot more bold now. I think, social media is just opening up the world. But my generation went through that, where we'd come from a culture in the childhood and the teenagehood of, we will tell you, you can walk into this street or you can't walk in this street. You can buy from this shop, but you can't buy from this shop. You are not allowed to live in this area. You can only live, across the railway line, on the other side of the railway line. So I've learned, I don't know if it was that conscious, but I had to develop a character to say, why not? Mm-hmm. If you tell me no, I want to know why not. Why are you stopping me from doing this? So I think that helped me in my career. Then if I look at the jobs that I got, eventually from journalism, like I said, I moved to tourism. And especially when I now joined BA in the 90s, that's really where my career took off in terms of now going to the senior level of development. I was the first Black graduate in the whole of Africa to join British Airways.
Wow.
Crazy as it sounds, because until then, the model was, yes, they flew into quite a number of African countries, but they would always bring a crew from UK. So the general manager came from UK, the sales manager came from UK, the airport manager came from UK, and then sometimes they would take locals. And that, like I said, I was the right place at the right time. They were now transitioning to say, this is actually a very costly model. We're bringing all these expatriates in, etc. And for whatever reason, they decided, let's start recruiting some locals into senior positions. And that's the time when I applied for the British Airways position and I joined as sales manager Zimbabwe. Within 3 months, I was Zimbabwe, Zambia, Malawi. Within 15 months, I was East and West Africa. And within another year, I was Sub-Saharan Africa. But it was the first time that they had a Black person in that position. And what I liked was it was a very professional organization. So we'd fly to London for meetings and all over the world, etc. And they didn't care who you are. You may be representing Africa. You need to deliver as much as the Americas and anyone else in the world. There was one time I remember, I can't even remember which country it was somewhere in the Middle East. It was Doha or Qatar or something, because we were just in and out of these countries. And in the evening, we were sitting for dinner. And one of my colleagues that I sort of become very good friends with, there was a British guy. And he says, don't you feel odd sometimes? And I said, why? And he said, you are the only Black person in the room. And I actually looked, I said, oh, I hadn't noticed. And, this was a conference of about 400 people.
Wow.
And so I think I was lucky that I had that opportunity. But I also had my own internal confidence to be able to cope and manage and be myself. Actually learn about being very professional, also at the same time not apologize for my African identity.
Right.
And I think that's also has been an integral character for me, that I've never, ever felt the need to apologize for being Black, for being African, for where I grew up. When I was now in South Africa, and I had a senior position at the convention center, I was CEO of the convention center. And I would say to the ladies who were cleaning, you guys, I've been working with you now 5 years and you've never invited me to your homes. And they'll be, oh, Mati, but we're embarrassed. And I said, why? She said, do you know what type of houses we live in? And I said, I'm a Black person in Africa. Where do you think I started from? Okay, I may not necessarily have been in a shack, but, we started maybe in a 4-roomed, not 4-bedroomed, 4-roomed house.
Right.
And then my parents were hard workers and got us west. But also, don't you think I've got relatives who've lived in shacks?
Right.
So you think I've never been in a shack in my whole life? They were almost surprised. But I said to them, but I'm a black person from Zimbabwe. Where did you think I would have, at my age, have lived this posh life? We only saw these suburban houses when I was in my 20s. We were not allowed to own suburban houses. We were supposed to stay in the townships. So I've been privileged, honestly, to be the first in a number of senses, but also demonstrate to the others to say it is doable, it is possible. And like I said, now the younger generation have got the world opening up to them. And like I always say, always ask yourself, who's stopping you? I almost feel sometimes, talk more about with my husband, because I guess we're too much of analysts, because he's a professor in pharmacology.
Okay.
So we spend too much time analyzing things. And sometimes I say to him, sometimes I feel in life, yes, because of the way we've grown up in Africa, in some African countries, there were walls put around you, whether physical walls, whether, no, you may not go there or whatever. But a lot of those walls have come down. But sometimes people don't realize that there are no more walls.
Right.
So you're standing there and you're still in a cage position, saying, I'm waiting for the walls to go down, or I'm not allowed to step there. But it's only all in your mind. The walls are down.
The sky's the limit.
The sky's the limit, yes.
Be what you want to see.
Act 2, The Road. Earlier, you had talked about receiving no's. And I always like to think about no's as meaning next opportunity, right? And I also appreciated what you were talking about in terms of essentially coming up in your own, in terms of not only as a Black woman, but also as a professional. So there was a nice personal as well as professional development around your own liberation.
Yes.
In the context of greater Black liberation and Black empowerment.
Yes.
So take us now to MBano Manor.
Yes.
First, tell us, what does MBano mean?
So MBano is actually my other name. In terms of, it's the clan name. So in our culture, I always give the best example is Nelson Mandela, because everyone knows Nelson Mandela. And remember, people used to affectionately refer to him as Madiba.
Yes.
So Madiba is his clan name. So the tribes of Southern Africa, the main tribe, then sub-tribes or clans. So each clan had a name or an identity. So Madiba wasn't just him. It was his brothers, it was his uncles. It's a patrilineal sort of background. So in my father's tribe or clan, that was exactly the same. So MBano belongs to the clan. In fact, in my father's one, there's a difference where the men have got their own name and the women have got their own name. And that happens quite a lot in the Zimbabwe clans, but even in South Africa as well. So my father's clan was Matemavi. That's how people referred to him, to his brothers, to his brother cousins, right through to my grandfather, patrilineal. But then the women of that clan are called MBano. So MBano, a name that belongs to my aunts, my father's sisters. And when we were growing up, we were so lucky in our family because my father, he was just 1 plus 2 sisters, which was quite rare for that time because, normally most of them were like 6, 8, 10 people or something. Just an aside, my grandmother always used to say I was bewitched. Why did I have 3 children only? So it was a family joke. She used to get very upset about it, to say, someone bewitched me. Why did I have 3 children only? But anyway, it was my father and 2 sisters. But because of that, they were a very close family. So my aunts were so proud of their brother and obviously so proud of us. They always only ever referred to us by our clan names. They never called us by our first names. So it was always Hello MBano or Hello MBano. When you put the ma, it's a sign of respect. It's like a vous in French. Yeah, so we've got the tu and the vous. Ma means it's a plural. Although it's only me, they're talking to me as MBano, so we respect you. So although I may be 5 years old or 10 years old, they would actually call me, Hello MBano. No, don't do that this way. Don't do that way. It was a sense of identity because it belongs to the clan, but it's also saying you are part of a community. You are part of who we are, and we behave in a certain way. It was also a way of socialization in terms of us MBanos, we don't do things like that. No MBano, do things the right way. So you always found it was a way of also chastising you if you're not doing things correctly, but in a very gentle way.
Yes.
So you almost always find the biggest thing is respect. always refer to someone by their clan name as a sign of respect. So I found even like with my father, even though they're brother, sister, they know each other's first names, my aunts would never refer to my father by his first name. They would always say, Matemavi, how are you today? You've lifted the conversation to a respect level. So imagine you're sitting there as an 8-year-old or a 12-year-old, and then they turn to you and they say, MBano, how are you this morning? And this is a 40-year-old woman calling you by a name. So I could answer her back and say, MBano, I slept well. So now it came to naming the hotel. I just felt, I guess, an aha moment to say, this is what this hotel is going to be called. Because this is not a celebration of who I am today, but it's a celebration of where I've come from.
Yes.
There were so many building blocks. There were so many people who built me to who I am today. Those late aunts of mine, those uncles of mine, also from my mother's side, my father's side. So it's part of who we are, especially, in our clan. And this is really in a Southern African thing. I can't talk for other clans I'm not familiar with. But it's all about a village brings up a child.
Yes.
It's not about individuals. It's not about a family. We really genuinely grew up in that era where your neighbor had the right to tell you off. Not today's kids will be like, who is she?
Right.
Yeah, so for me, MBano represents that. It was a celebration of, I'm proudly African. I'm proud of where I come from. I offer no apologies for my blackness. But at the same time as well, I've been privileged. I've educated myself. I've gone through tons and tons of school, PhD, and everything. I've educated myself. I've learned from the best, and I've taken the trouble to learn. So when I'm now doing this project, I want to show the best that we can do. I also want to show Black excellence because we are now also moving into a new generation. It's time to stop apologizing to say I can't do things because I'm African. Oh, I'm being stopped. That's why I talked about where are the walls?
Yeah.
Don't create walls for yourself. So for me, when it came to this, it was, I'm going to build the best hotel because I can, because I belong here, but also because I've learned from the best and I know exactly what to do. So when I started this project, first of all, because I identified the land and because of my experience in tourism, I knew I could do something with it. It's not next to the falls. It's not next to the river, but, it is 10 minutes away.
Right.
And I said, I've seen resorts developing where you think it's in the middle of nowhere, but as towns grow, next thing you're like, oh, you're right next door to us, etc. So I knew the potential because some people were saying to me, oh, that's too far. I'm like, but it's only 4 kilometers from the falls. What's far about that? But number two, because I'm a woman and I'm doing this, even with all the history I'd done, and people, my peers in the industry, since I'd left the country, they knew what I was doing because I had quite a high-profile job in South Africa. They still doubted whether I could actually achieve this.
Was that a major challenge for you
It was. It was a serious challenge. Looking back, I probably came across as overconfident, but also I failed to appreciate that there were genuine prejudices, even among our own Black people. So later now, especially in 2020, 2021, they would come here, some of them, and they say, you'd come to us, to the bank to present, and everyone thought you were crazy. We all thought, what Black person builds a 5-star hotel, a real 5-star hotel? Black people should just do small lodges. But again, it's that whole mental prison. They really didn't believe in my vision.
Wow.
I was turned down so many times because, first of all, at least we'd managed to scrape around money to buy the land. But now I had to find funders to build the multi-million-dollar project. I struggled, for almost 2 years. I struggled.
Just looking for funders and investors.
Looking for funders. So the first time was because, remember I told you I'd been in South Africa for almost 20 years.
Yes.
So I actually was more of a South African than a Zimbabwean when it came to business. So I knew more people in South Africa. So I was like, even when I started the project, I was like, oh, I know I can go and see this one, and, talk to them about investing. But I forgot the baggage that Zimbabwe carried at the time. To say, it's a pariah state, people don't want to go and invest in Zimbabwe, there's politics, etc., etc. So I'll talk to these people and fly in Cape Town, Joburg, everywhere, and people are saying, being nice to me. And, a few of them in the end, like after 6 weeks, would say to me, you know what, Mati, I believe in you, but I'm not sure it's the right time for me to invest in Zimbabwe. And, it takes you about 3 or 4 no's before you realize it's not going to work, because you're so confident. I mean, there was one where we really, really went far. It was an institution, and they even sent a team to check everything, etc., etc. But at the last minute, they pulled the plug and said, no, we're not coming. I obviously spent a lot of money rushing around. Another interesting dynamic is because I knew what I wanted to do, and I was very confident. It's not that I was on my own. I had a team behind me, but obviously you have to keep it small. So I had like a financial analyst and somebody who's doing X. But one is sitting in Harare, one is sitting in Joburg, one is sitting in Cape Town. But I'm the one who would turn up at the meetings. Especially for Harare, you also realize some of the prejudices to say there's still a thing about, oh, we want to see your team. So it's, like marketing 101, your MBA 101, turn up with you plus 10 other people. And later, 1 or 2 of them actually said to me, Doc, your problem was you turned up at meetings alone.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Now, it wasn't specifically that you needed a white proxy to be there, or it was just that you needed to show that it's not just me as a singular person?
Yeah, it's not just me, a singular person. No, in Zim, they were not expecting a white proxy. They were just saying, we expected you to come with a team. We didn't know who else was behind you. In South Africa, it wasn't a problem because there was almost that culture to say you can walk into any door and talk. So I brought that South African culture here, but I didn't appreciate enough to say the dynamics. So in the end, with some meetings, I'd say to my daughter, let's go together. So I look like I've got a team, but all the ideas are mine. So that was the one, but definitely it was a struggle. People didn't believe that I could do it. It was almost like the concept is way too big to say, oh, I want to build a hotel where one day I can even be charging $1,000 a night. And
wow.
They're like, also, with the economic circumstances at the time, we're talking 2016, 2017, some people apparently actually say, well, you know what, we were earning $200 and we're thinking this person wants to charge $1,000 a night. Who buys that? Because also they haven't been exposed to the world and they don't.
Right. And there's a market for all of this.
Yes, but also this whole thing to say, we know that there may be some of these exclusive resorts that you see online and wherever, but what makes you, a black woman, think you can do this? So there was almost prejudice within my own team and my own circumstances. So that was really tough. I mean, I struggled. I think I did easily up to 100 presentations.
Wow.
In the end, it got to the stage where, in the end, pension funds are the ones that funded me.
Okay.
But even as I was still looking for additional funding, you'd be told, oh, there's this capital investor or whatever, venture capitalists, etc. I would actually go to a meeting and say to them, guys, I'm going to present to you. If you don't believe in it, please tell me. Don't keep quiet. Don't keep me hanging for 3 weeks or a month. Rather tell me within a day or two to say, you know what, no, it's not for us. And that started happening. So I actually appreciated it because...
Yes. Their candor, and why are we wasting
time? Why are we wasting? Yeah, I would actually say, I don't want to waste your time. No, but actually, it's you. I don't want you to waste my time. No, it was tough. With the ones that I did manage to get, now negotiating, trying to get the best deal, because, I'm also a new entrepreneur after all is said and done. And, in the middle of it, I also broke the rules a bit because Hoteliers that I was working with was advising me, said, raise all the money first and then you start building. But the minute I raised some money, I'm like, no, I'm on the ground. And I look back and I say, honestly, thank goodness I would never have built the project. But I think it was because I started, I was one of those, it will be completed.
Yeah.
It's not going to stop. Even twice I remember some of the investors in Harare, and you never know sometimes what people are thinking. It was like, no, you failed to raise this, so why don't we mothball the project? That happened twice.
Wow.
And my husband and I would go home and we would laugh our heads off and we're like, guess what? You just now want to take over the project. You failed because, this one is refused. And I'm like, no, they've said no, but I've got 10 others that I'm following. And yes, it's tough. The Zim dollar itself was devaluing. So whatever money you're getting, if you don't use it straight away or if someone delays in actually issuing it out, actually not the same value that...
Yes.
It was rough. I don't want to lie. It was
but you know what? I think for you, it's a testament. And I think for our listeners, being here in this space, There's a lot of love. There's a lot of care. I mean, it's definitely an eco-friendly, eco-tourist sort of place.
Yes.
To appreciate the environment. And so I can imagine that despite all of the challenges, you were able to break down and build this beautiful space.
Yes.
For people to come, and then even to survive through COVID.
I know, I'm sure you know the story. We finished building December 2019, planning to open January 2020. So January 2020, we were busy unpacking. I had my first guests February 2020. 6 weeks later, we were closed.
Wow.
For COVID, and we closed for 4 months. Yeah. I always look back because I would be walking here, beautiful place, nobody. But I actually thanked God to say at least I had finished construction. Because if I'd even been caught out like 4 months before or 6 months before, oh my goodness, some of the investors would have had me for breakfast.
Yeah.
So at least I had the product complete. And I could even say to the investors, at least the product is complete. Let's just wait and ride this storm out. And you know, tourism, all of us, we struggled.
Yes.
But for me, now I'm in year 4, but I'm actually still in year 1 because 2020 was a total write-off. There were no flights, there was nothing.
Yes.
2021, there were dribbles. We wanted it to work, so we kept on saying, I think we're recovering now. And then, and then the reality says, no.
I think the world thought so because, of course, we had a lot of loss of life globally around COVID. But then you also had people who were thinking, we need to have a different kind of normal. We need to get back out there. People are really far more social than they probably thought they were.
Yes.
And wanted to travel, but then certain countries had travel bans.
Yes. You still had to have 1,000 forms and 1,000 certificates and vaccinations. So I would actually say 2020 and 2021 were total write-offs. And all I just say is, like I said, I thank God that at least a smaller staff. I mean, I literally went in early 2020 from 30 people to 8. And then you start saying, okay, let's get one more this one more this one. Can we manage? My daughter, I've mentioned a few times, she was in the project all the way with me. And so she was the one managing the finances. And honestly, sometimes would get to the 23rd of the month and payday is 25th, and we're not sure we're going to make it. But something always happened.
It always works out.
And we always made it. But yeah, it was tough. And 2022, that's when you finally started feeling now things are beginning to normalize. A lot of people didn't think it was my project because it was, because I'm a black woman. So no ways. She can't own this 4-acre thing. She's just the manager or the implementer. There was literally a belief that one day some owner, some big politician or big businessman is going to come through and then they'll say, okay, this is the real owner of the place.
Wow.
So in a way, it worked for me during the construction phase because they left me alone because they didn't know supposedly who is the powerhouse that I represented. And my husband and I always used to laugh and say, well, this is the powerhouse. There's nothing else. But post that, when they actually realize that it is my own, then the prejudice really comes in because now you are a threat to them. Because my story is a powerful story, that a black woman can actually achieve excellence, that you don't need to have political connections to do what I did. And even up to today, believe you me, I'm still facing that. You know, if I tell you that in Victoria Falls itself, the guys don't support me.
That's very sad.
Yeah. I'll just say, well, it is what it is. We shall not speculate what the reasons are, but, you know, you would expect that you have got your own business partners and they support you, but I don't get support from them at all. I have been growing my business, but my business has actually come from outside the country, not from inside the country. Yes, I have had some support from Harare and from Zimbabweans, etc., etc. But there's definitely been prejudice because also, I'm sure you've noticed in Southern Africa, tourism is very much a white domain. So I'm not trying to talk out of 10. And that's the same in Victoria Falls as well. So I always say I've crossed the railway line. I could do a project, but I wasn't supposed to do a project this big. I wasn't supposed to do a beautiful place like this. So it's almost like you're breaking the rules and the dynamics of the place. So yeah, people will smile at you, but you know, they're like, you know what?
I can understand and appreciate in a sense that you would always want your own to say, yes, I see you, I got you, I support you.
Yes.
But the success of MBano Manor has been extraordinary because in the beginning of April or so of 23, MBano joined
a global
Mantis.
the Mantis collection.
Yes, tell us about that, because that is huge.
Yes.
And especially since you're talking about the fact that it's not just a Black person, but especially a Black woman to achieve such a fantastic goal.
And the thing is, they approached me.
Wow. So tell folks a little bit about, what does it mean?
The then owner of Mantis Collection, he's sort of more or less almost retired now, actually approached me in 2020 when he heard about the project. And we spoke, it was literally in the first weeks of COVID. And he said, look, we've been looking at having an identity in Victoria Falls of our own. I've heard you've got a beautiful facility and I'd love you to come and join us. Your facility also talks to nature, because the Mantis Collection is very much anchored on sustainability, conservation and community. He sort of felt what we've put here together works along that. So we had a lovely conversation. And I said to him, look, I'm just surviving COVID at the moment. So let's keep talking. So we kept in touch. And then I'm the one then who made the move in 2022, because now having gone through the worst of COVID, it looks like the industry is getting back to normal. I'm a businesswoman. I also had to look and say, it's a new market entrant. Let's take aside COVID and everything else. You're going to get competition. You're going to try and prove yourself to people, etc., etc. It's going to be tough. But I realized that because even my own competitors were supposed to be established, they are also starting from zero base because they've lost 2 years of revenues. The tourism world is fighting for survival. We saw a lot of businesses closing down. A big hotel in town closed down. I actually made that conscious decision to say, look, I can do this on my own, but it's going to be tough. I've got a group that has expressed interest. It works for me. So it was a strategic decision to say, you know what, let me align with Big Brother. It's just a sales and marketing agreement, because the model that they offered me was you still retain ownership of the place, you still retain management of the place, so they don't interfere in the management. Yes, they've got some of their standards here and there, but they're not your cookie cutter sort of McDonald's, you will do 2x2 and 3x3, whatever. They say, look, the beauty of your product is what you have done with it and who you are. So keep that identity and keep that management style. But now you're part of the sales and marketing team globally. So that worked for me to say, it will help me to open up more doors globally than I would on my own. So yes, I made that strategic decision to say, let me join the Mantis Collection. And honestly, it has been a very positive development. I mean, my first trip to Cape Town post being part of the Mantis Collection, and one of the sales managers there phoned around a few friends, and then she said, sorry, she's busy with something. You go on your own. A few of them, the first thing they'd actually say to me, well done for joining the Mantis Collection. And, you could see people are serious about it, because it's almost like it gave you that stamp of approval to say they would have done their due diligence with you, so we don't have to do the due diligence. Really, this is now just talking as a tourism product, because you have to say, is it safe? Does it meet the standards, etc.? And obviously with our core, because Mantis Collection is part of our core. So we had to meet certain requirements. Fortunately, we met most of them already. But the fact that their core group globally was willing to take us on board, that gave us a lot of credibility. So I think the credibility is really the biggest benefit I've received. And obviously now opening the marketing channels. So we're now doing business with a lot of people all over the world, purely because we're part of Mantis and we're part of our core.
Yeah, and our core is huge. And even to have been able to negotiate and strike such a deal for yourself, Black owned, Black female owned, and then in the area of Zimbabwe over here in decades. I don't think there's been a deal like this.
No, there hasn't been, yes. But I think...
So you're such a trailblazer. You're just...
Thank you. But I think also, the global business giants know that the world is changing. I've heard that from a number of tourists who say, look, people are becoming more conscious. In fact, someone was talking to me about emotional consumerism, which I found very interesting, because people are asking questions to say, who's going to benefit from this trip that I've made? Am I really making a difference to the world? I may be wealthy, comfortable, but I want to make a difference. Even the organizations themselves realize that the world is changing. If people are coming to Africa, they want to see Africans. They don't just want to see African waiters and African bed hands. They're actually saying, where are the African owners? So when you also show them to say, it's not just about, I must apologize for being African, so give you something that is not so clean or not so whatever. I can actually give the global standards, but yet still remain proudly African in my identity. There is definitely that move. I think I'm speaking to that need on a global level. And several times I've said to my team, we'll be sitting here And literally the whole place is just international people. And I would say to the team, be grateful, give the best service, because I can tell you, every one of those people sitting by the pool, they've done their Googling and they know exactly who owns this place, but they're happy with it. They're comfortable and they're trusting us. So let's not let them down.
Well, I tell you this as a consumer, personally, we've been very intentional. When you think about it, I think most people, we look at our dollars. I think if anything, because of COVID and living through a global pandemic, that people are watching their dollars. They work hard for their money. And so they want not just to get the best deal, but to know that their money is well spent because they received a product, they received a service, they had an experience. And to your point around the emotional consumerism, Maya Angelou is oftentimes quoted as saying, it's not what you do or what you say, but it's how you make them feel that people remember you most by. And so I can see with tourism and emotional consumerism, if I walked away from an experience feeling great, then you're going to talk about it. Then you're going to want to share it. And other people are intrigued and want to experience it. And if it wasn't good, trust me, no one's going to want to come back or do any of that sort of thing, right?
I know, yeah. So still a long way to go. Unfortunately, because of COVID and everything, we had to crash our prices. So it's almost like our product, we put it where it needs to be, but our pricing is still trying to catch up with it, etc. It's still a long journey to try and attract the market that we want to attract. But like I said, there's competition. We're not just sitting there. The other day I was walking, I just saw another gate and another name. I was like, oh my God, here's another somebody else joining the market. So you've also got to be conscious to say, the world is not sitting still and waiting for you to succeed. You still have to do all the things you have to do to market yourself and get out there.
Get involved.
Act 3. Where we land. What does the future hold for MBano Manor? What should folks look into in terms of when they're traveling, trying to book their next experience? Where can they find you all, learn more about this wonderful and special place?
Fantastic. Basically, MBano Manor Hotel by Mantis is a 19-suite product. So we've got 18 luxury suites and 1 villa where we're sitting at the moment. The way we've positioned ourselves, even when we started our vision, was to say, we want to take the best of what you would experience, let's say, in a camp, that's sort of away from it all, under the African sun and in the forest, but very close to the falls. So almost have the best of both worlds. That's why you find in terms of our structure and design, it's almost a yin and yang. So lots of space because we're in Africa and we want lots of space, but also a few touches of effortless luxury. But the biggest thing I think that I would say we sell is the place itself. It's interesting. I ask people when they stay with us, what did you feel? Some have actually said it's like a living spa. Because the forest is what it is when I got here. We only took down 2 trees in the whole construction. So literally, as you see it now, after a few more rains, it will be very dense. You won't even see that building there. And I think somehow it's talking to the soul of a lot of people, because I always find the day after, I always ask people, and they always say, it is so tranquil. I felt like I reconnected with myself. And what we're saying is, come to Victoria Falls, which is one of the 7 wonders of the world. But while you're at it, you also have a chance just to reconnect with yourself and to celebrate what the best of Africa can give. We are on Facebook, we are on Instagram. I'm also on LinkedIn as well, and MBano is on LinkedIn as well. We've obviously got a website as well that is always updated with all the information that we have. You can contact us at www.mbanomanorhotel.com or even just our own reservations at mbanomanorhotel.com. So we are fully active. I've got a marketing manager who helps me with that.
I love it.
Yes, yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Doc Mati.
Thank you.
Yes, I appreciate you, and I appreciate the time that you've spent talking with us.
Thank you for this opportunity, and I'm glad that you've come to join us here in Victoria Falls and can spread the word out there. Guys, come and visit us. Thank you so much.
Thank you. The journey isn't over, but this episode is. To catch the latest, be sure to subscribe to the podcast and follow us on Instagram at JourneysB2B_podcast. Thanks for listening.